From Jacob to Israel, Book 1, Chapter 6. Friday. I awoke early the next morning. I could feel a dream slipping away from me that I would never recall. The troubles of the previous day melted away in the middle of the night. My long sleep had numbed my mind and body. How long could I mourn a dead imaginary girlfriend? Miss Bessett must have spent the night because she was slaving away in the kitchen over what smelled like a delicious breakfast. I walked into the dining hutch and saw my dad rolling his gray mustache between his fingers and reading his newspaper. Andrea smiled when she saw me and motioned for me to take a seat with a frying pan in her hand. I could definitely get used to this. I hadn't ever had 2 breakfasts in the same week, unless it was some kind of long holiday at my grandmother's. You're going to have to spend the night with your mother so that we can get a truck tomorrow to go get your book and bookshelves. Your bed and bookshelves. Yeah, I'm not leaving without that bed, I said between bites. You also need to start packing your clothes and other stuff you want to take. I bet you could get Thubton to spend the night with you since it's the weekend. Your mother will behave if she has guests, my father added, thrusting his spoon like a shovel into his grits. I poked at my sausage patty with my fork. My stomach had twisted in some mental knot, tightening the pangs of gestating doom. I just thought it was because of Emily. I was too young to recognize signs. We will come pick you up Saturday afternoon and get ready for your birthday party this Sunday. It's the big 1-5. You didn't think we forgot, did you? He took a sip of his coffee and smiled under his mustache. Do you have any friends you want to invite over other than Thubton? I'll fire up the grill for hot dogs and hamburgers and rent some flicks for you kids, so you can hang out in the room upstairs, away from us uncool geezers. Yeah, I have a few people I'd like to invite. I don't know how they would feel about hanging out with their English teacher, though. I looked at Andrea. She gave me a playful glare and I burst out laughing. Thanks, guys. Thank you both very, very much. I stirred my steaming bowl of oatmeal and sighed, trying to compose what came next. I'm really glad the 2 of you are talking again. I hated to find out that you 2 were together at one time and that I might have been what was coming between the 2 of you, keeping you guys apart. It wasn't you, Jacob, my father said. Andrea wanted kids. I already have a son, and I don't get to see him nearly enough. Now it looks like she and I will both get what we want. You. Now I just have to cut back at the zoo, and Andrea will be the happiest woman on earth. He smiled and neatly folded his newspaper and sat it down on the table. Something amazing had transpired between them in a single day. I heard about what's been happening in your mother's home. We know what Mr. Riley tried to do. We know he chased you in the middle of the night. That pastor across the street told Andrea everything. I'll give your mother a call and tell her that unless she wants legal measures taken against her, she will tell her boyfriend to stay away until Sunday, when you are here with us celebrating your birthday, safe and sound, in your new home. I fell silent and looked down. For some reason, I felt humiliated. I was ashamed of my terrifying life in that tiny little trailer. But everything was working out. This Sunday was sure to be the best birthday ever. Andrea spoke up. Well, your father is right. I can't possibly understand what you're going through. So I'm just going to be here for you, in your new home. I did want a baby of my own, that's true. And you need a mommy, so I think we will be quite happy together. As a family, I mean. Andrea was turning red. I began softly crying as she spoke. She was obviously trying to cheer me up. "Do you want some bacon?" Panic barked. He seemed to like it here. My dad had a big backyard for him to run around in. I reluctantly ate the rest of my breakfast. My stomach was busy turning cartwheels and trying to boil itself in its own bile. My father placed the call to my mother, and I thought about all the notebooks I needed to grab. I wish I could take my grandmother's old bed with me. Oh well, sacrifices must be made. I didn't mind giving up my mole's hole for a cheerful bird's nest in the sky. My father's discussion with my mother became heated, which didn't help my stomach. My mother ended up promising to keep her brute away for the weekend, but only because it was my birthday. I sarcastically smirked when my father told me this. I got ready for school with the coolest clothes I have ever owned at my disposal. Miss Bessett brought me a whole wardrobe the previous day. I picked out a pair of dark blue Levi's and a basic black tee. I didn't care what I wore. I had no one to impress now that Emily was gone. My father grabbed his things for work at the zoo. He was in blue jeans and a t-shirt as well. I was glad he didn't have a uniform. He kissed my forehead goodbye, a firm, warm scraggliness. He kissed Andrea goodbye in her grease-splattered apron. He said he looked forward to Saturday and told me not to worry and to be happy. Everything's going to be awesome here. You'll love it. I don't care how much I have to dump on a lawyer. I'm going to bury that woman in legal fees. He laughed as he slammed the door behind him. "I love you," he called out as he left. I would not see him again until my new birth. Andrea filled the sink with dirty dishes and asked what we should do with Panic while I was in school. I said that he would be fine in Dad's backyard. Then I thought about how much safer I would feel with my dog with me that evening and said he could hang out in the woods by school. Isn't it dangerous to leave him outside of the school? No way. He did it before like it was instinct. You saw. He sticks near me pretty well. Besides, who would hurt such a sweet dog? Panic looked up at me and woofed, as if to agree. I swear that dog is something else, Andrea said. We drove to school together, teacher and student, mother and son. She let Panic out in the teacher's parking lot, and he ran straight to the woods, as if he had practiced. See? I pointed at my speeding dog darting off as if on a fox hunt. And he will be right here when I get out of school, I grinned. I'm impressed. I don't know why someone would ever abandon such a well-behaved dog. Well, I have to get to my planning period. I'll see you third period. I know you didn't do your homework, but I'll let it slide, she winked. It's your birthday weekend after all. You look snazzy in your new clothes. Try to be happy. I was truly happy. Thank you again. I love you. She gave me a hug and we left each other there, each going our separate ways, not allowing our evolving relationship to cloud our educational duties to one another. The first person I saw as I walked up to my circle of friends was Thupton. He was perched on his air conditioner. I was glad to have him back in his proper place. I could not be the guiding force of compassion and love that he was. The group depended on his stability and mixtapes. Too much. He got up from where he sat when he saw me and came skipping toward me excitedly. "Everything is okay," he said. "What?" "Everything's okay. My dad's inventions were all returned, and all of the magnets." "What, really?" Yeah, at 3:03 our alarms went off and everything was right where it was supposed to be. I saw it all. My dad was flipping out. And that's only part of it. The magnets had larger magnetic fields, and his inventions were made out of higher quality materials. He said that the metals looked exotic, and they've been improved to be more energy efficient. We have no idea how it happened, but my father feels sure it was an act of the gods, or angels, or something holy. He isn't even worried about the government anymore. He has never been like this. He stayed up all night in his workshop. Something wonderful is happening, Jacob. He poured out in a long, uninterrupted outburst. This eased the tension in my stomach. Thupton told me all about the improvements that had been made. I was impressed, shocked, and slightly scared. It was then that Thupton decided to tell me in detail about his father's various inventions, which were capable of incredible and possibly very destructive, if in the wrong hands. Each one of these inventions had been manipulated in some form or fashion. They, whoever they are, increased the EMP radius to 1,000 miles, and the power output has been multiplied exponentially, he explained. I remembered the beam of light. Maybe Narayan was right. Maybe the gods were influencing his inventions. Maybe they were giving him what he wanted more than anything, just as God gave Isaac to Abraham. Tesla didn't even have intervention on this magnitude. My stomach continued its flip-flopping. The bell rang and Thupton and I went to math class together. During class, we exchanged notes and glances. These stares affected me somewhat differently than normal. I stopped passing notes to Thupton, and he gave me such a sad look. My neglect was obviously hurting his feelings. I could read his face like a book. I couldn't meet his eyes without feeling guilty, so halfway through class, I found myself avoiding him altogether. After class, he was obviously upset and didn't look at me when I caught his arm outside the door by the lockers. Why didn't you look at me? The last part of class. Why did you stop passing me notes? People were looking at us weird, I replied shyly, trying to be very cautious, sensitive, and loving. What do you mean? He asked. Before I could answer, he said, who cares how people look at us anyways? We're different from them, better than them in so many ways. Maybe you are, but I'm not. This carried layers of meaning. I'm not any different from them. Maybe you are, but I'm not sure I am. But Thupton was right. We were different from these people. Better in some ways, but the same in other ways. Like trees of the same species at different stages of development. Trees that had grown up strong in a sea of saplings. I had grown up tough, a surprise bursting out of dry soil. Roots curling lonesomely in the desert, all the more resilient for it. And Thupton was a mighty tree in a mighty forest, drawing his strength from the ancient network of deep roots that connected him to his family. 2 olive trees. Thupton sighed. Well, I know how these people think. I don't want anyone looking at us weird either. But I still want to be closer to you. You're my best friend. You make me happy. Emily made me happy, and now she's gone. Emily never existed. Her illusion made you happy. Melissa died not knowing who you were. His words stung. They dug their way deep down into my skin and burrowed into my bones. I'll help you get over her. I'll help you be happy. He put his hand on my shoulder. There was a childlike innocence in the way he said it. Why do children wonder over the beauty of a rose or the stars in the sky? Why do children love God? Though Thupton's words hurt, they healed as well, like resetting a broken bone before the cast can be placed. He was right again. I managed to smile, and I told him I would see him in Miss Bessett's class. He said okay. Latin went by uneventfully. I told Captain D that everything was okay, and he hugged me before class started. That old man's hugs really meant something to me. I kept my head down and walked hurriedly to English, skipping by a certain junior-level science class as if it never existed. When I got to third period, I was excited to see Andrea and Thupton together in one place. I began to feel like everything might be looking up. During class, Andrea read from her book of poetry. I was entranced by the web of words that she cast her literary spells with. She brought the poem to life as a long snake of melodic voice swimming through the air. Her voice danced in my mind and built images clearer than any television could produce. This woman was going to be my new mother. I hoped she would read to me at night before I went to bed. I asked Thupton to spend the night. He said that he would love that and let loose a fantastic smile, showing me all of his teeth. He had a change of clothes at my trailer for occasions such as this, and said he would call his parents and let him know he was going to spend the night. But aren't you worried about Mr. Riley being there? Thupton asked. Nah, my dad made my mom promise to keep him away while I got ready to move. What? He exclaimed. I was puzzled. It hadn't occurred to me that I hadn't told him my good news yet. Oh, I'm moving in with my dad, and so is Andrea, Miss Bessett. What? He literally yelled this time. Turns out they used to date. My dad actually wrote that snail poem for her. It seems like they just needed to get together and patch things up. I'm going to have a real house like you now. Wow, that's awesome. It looks like some good karma is finally coming back to you. Life couldn't get any better than what it is shaping out to be. Thupton sighed gleefully. We laughed the rest of the class period, overjoyed in our new freedom. Narayan was safe, protected by something special, and karma was giving me what I felt I was entitled to. Class passed quickly, as do all good times, and that is the tragedy of it all. I hugged Miss Bessett goodbye and told her I would see her Saturday afternoon. I would be born anew, and she would see my flesh rise from the tomb. The day ended, and on the way to the bus stop, Panic shot out of the woods and joined me. We climbed onto the bus together, a boy and his dog. The driver didn't even seem to notice. I often wondered if she was intoxicated. Maybe it was pharmaceuticals. We joined Thupton in the back where Brandon was sitting with Kathy, sprawled out on his wide lap, luxuriously. Their young love was refreshing. They saw Panic and immediately started showering him with love and attention. The back of the bus crowded with kids, wanting to pet the sweet puppy. Tommy hung over the seat, going on and on about what a success his D&D campaign was. The party had managed to talk to a wise man in a deep cave that brought the cleric back to life, and together they had defeated the dragon. All was well in the realm of Dungeons and Dragons, and in the world in general. Thupton and I talked quietly. He winked and smiled at me more than normal. Something was beginning to change between us. I think my stomach knew this. It churned sickly. The bus dropped us off at my stop. Thupten, Panic, and I headed down the dirt road to my mom's tiny trailer. I hoped tonight would be my last night within those thin, rickety particle board walls. As we walked, we heard no dogs, only the breeze and the distant roar of traffic down Highway 6. Thupten extended his hand to me as we walked, and I unconsciously grabbed it. We walked hand in hand up to my house. I pointed out birds flying over the field next to Pastor Casey's parsonage. Parsonage? I don't know how to say that word. We'll go with parsonage. Indian summer, Thupten said. I noticed two large interconnected circles in the field, as if a tractor had cut only part of the grass, but much neater, as though the grass had decided, blade by blade, to bow into a strange geometric formation. I noticed this passively, but a part of my brain filed it away. Neither Thupten or I commented on it. We had other things on our minds at the time. I was daydreaming about the sun and moon interlocking and forming the boat of Osiris, Noah's Ark. When the three of us got to my driveway, I could make out my mom's trailer, nestled in a clearing of pine trees. I saw her car, and next to it, the dirty red work truck that drove through my nightmares. He was here. He was in his house. I immediately dropped Thupten's hand and took 2 large steps back. My mouth fell open and my lips trembled in tearful fear. Thupten noticed the truck as well, and turned to face me and put both of his hands on my shoulders. He looked me straight in the eyes. He smiled sublimely. His aura glowed like a shining star. It will be fine. I'm with you, and so is your dog. Okay, you're right, like always. You're here. Nothing crazy is going to happen if you're here. We will go inside and tell them that you are here with a guest. He pointed to himself. Then we will stay outside until it gets late, and then we will sneak inside and start packing your things for your dad to come get tomorrow. Okay? Okay, I said. We headed up my long, potholed driveway with tall spire pines hanging over us like titans. The 100 yards of dusty driveway seemed to be a death march. My legs hurt and acid boiled in my muscles with every step. I drew closer to the beast's lair. My breath became faulty and unpredictable. Thupten reassured me with his white energy, and Panic marched ahead of us like a German police dog. We got up to the front porch, and I opened the door with caution. I reached into my pocket that held the golden orbs and wished that I could speed up time. My wish was not granted. As the door slowly opened, I saw Mr. Riley and my mother slouched in front of the television. My mother's face was still black and blue and swollen. She and Mr. Riley noticed us immediately. Panic rolled out a barely audible guttural sound akin to a growl, but more hate-filled. I didn't enter. Thupten is spending the night. We're gonna go play in the woods. They both looked at me, and then both of their heads turned back to the television without any sign of acknowledgement. Uncle Henry will be leaving shortly. His wife requires his presence, my mother told me in a deep southern drawl. She was in her princess alcoholic stage. She's been a real bitch lately, she said more to him than to me. I shut the door behind me, relieved, and headed with Thupton to the woods. We deposited our book bags in one of the many forts I had built during my childhood. We spent a lot of time in my tire swing, laughing and talking to each other about our high expectations of the future. We talked of our extinction. My life here would soon be behind me. The fear would be gone, replaced by love and comfort. I could bloom and become a regular teenager. I could have a home, a dog, a dad, and a mom. Most of all, Thupton assured me that I would always have him, that we would be best friends forever. I had no doubt. If I was certain of nothing else, I knew I would always have Thupton. And I would. We explored the forest of our imaginations together, and I allowed him into my daydreams. When I described the sailboats coasting over the fields of tall grass, he said he could see them too. He said my visions were beautiful, and he hoped we could go here together again sometime. Not this place, or this time even. Just this realm, a realm composed of thought and fantasy. A realm that is not past, or future, or present. In this timeless realm, anything that can or will exist does exist. The realm of spirit. A place we would both soon make our homes. The night came, and with it, what I assumed would be the last demons my childhood would face. We grabbed up our bags hastily. The trees crawled with imaginary beetles that sprayed ash and flaming dust from their mandibles. The goblins aimed their crossbows, and the imps giggled like sinister children from their bush homes. Thupton didn't hear these beings. He didn't see the evil spirits. He couldn't know that duality. He was past that kind of thinking. His tree was too tall to bother with such insubstantial gusts. I had yet to outgrow this childhood fear. He was born immune to it. Everything will be okay, he said again. He held my hand lovingly. I felt a little safer until I realized it was time to head back. The stars started coming out. I could see them swaying like lightly bobbing fireballs. The sky seemed alive tonight. I guessed it was 11 o'clock or so. My guts were aching. We walked back to my house, holding hands. Panic was with us every step of the way. I couldn't have felt safer with any other two creatures, except for maybe Pastor Casey and Martha Casey, with her sawed-off 12-gauge. I dropped his hand as we got within sight of the porch. Mr. Riley's pickup was still in the driveway. Apparently, he was still neglecting his wife. What was he thinking? I thought. She could financially ruin him. He said earlier this week she would divorce him. He could lose everything. What did I care? My rough times here would be coming to an end. We tried to sneak in through the back sliding glass door, but it screeched on its rusty tracks like a dying banshee. I heard a rumbling from my mother's bedroom, where I assumed the lovers were safely locked away in their carnal affair. "What the hell was that?" I heard a loud, drunken Mr. Riley yell. "Probably that little bastard and his queer, slant-eyed friend." I shivered, but I didn't hear his heavy, drunken feet hit the floor. He obviously wasn't interested enough to get up and check. Thupton tiptoed in behind me, and Panic sat patiently by the door. I saw a glint in his eyes that seemed human. I bet he was Joan of Arc in a past life. I slid the door shut, lifting it up off the track so as not to make a sound.